But mostly the people who pro with the mining is transmigrant.
The people who supports the mining are transmigrants, meaning they
It's
are not local population.
Not local populations, and then they are not the people who own the land.
Even when they are doing things like energy transition, it is often becoming very complicated on the ground. So, are you optimistic or pessimistic? Hello, salam ASEAN, ASEAN people. Welcome back to Talking ASEAN with podcast Bebas Aktif and the Habibie Center. First of all, we would like to extend our deepest sympathy and condolences for our friends and colleagues in different parts of Southeast Asia and beyond who were just become a victim of disasters, which we believe that there is no natural disasters. It is something that is pretty much created and affected by policies. And this is why our discussion today is going to be very important and interesting. And we welcome Mbak Belgis Habibah. Hi, Mbak Belgis.
Hi, Mas Sofan.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
Mbak Belgis is a forest campaigner from Greenpeace, an international organization working on helping us to fulfill our obligation to work together with the earth. And now we are going to discuss about energy transition and the impacts on people and how it is then connected to the idea of a just transition for all. Mbak Belgis, how are you today?
I'm fine, but it's like using English is
Yes.
something like okay.
Yeah.
But let's try talking in English and have a discussions, nice discussions.
Yeah, Mbak Belgis, in these few days we witnessed that policies matter. We witnessed that disasters struck several parts of Southeast Asia, and if we look at the latest report by UNESCOP, extreme weather events such as what is happening today, a few days ago, and maybe still happening in some parts of Southeast Asia, are going to be more frequent in the future. And according to that report, the causes of such situation, the increasing frequency of extreme weather events with significant consequences to the people is climate change. Climate change or even climate catastrophe is already happening. Climate crisis is already happening. It's in front of us. And to answer for this, we need something beyond business as usual. And among those actions beyond business as usual is what is often said is energy transition. So what is your thought on that?
Yes, of course, like when we are talking about that, now it's already like the impact of climate crisis is already in front of our eyes, in front
Yep.
of our home.
In front of our home.
Yeah, every single of us, not only people in Sumatra, but every single of us. In Jakarta, several maybe weeks ago, we like facing the, how do you say, it's like heat wave.
Heat wave in Jakarta.
Yeah, like the BMKG said that in several days we will facing more than something Celsius, and we need to cover something like that, and it will be happens frequently.
Yeah.
And then now, I think talking about Sumatra, Cyclone Sanyar is something rare happens in Equator.
A
But
cyclone
it's-
happening in Ecuador.
Equator, it's literally rare, but it's happened. it's not only because of like this is God's gift or something
Yeah.
like that, but this is because of what human did.
Yeah, yeah, we see that a lot of how to say videos coming in the social media shows that these are pretty much connected to deforestation, mining, yes, and also logging, yeah,
Yes, of
where
course.
I mean, I saw news that one factor that made this current disaster becoming so destructive is because the water also brings logs, which acts as a battering rams,
Yes.
destroying people's homes. And it's of course not natural if you see the types of cuts of the logs, and they even have numbers on those
Yes.
logs.
And if we talk about Sumatra, yes, it's because of like irresponsible of the policymaker, because of they never looking forward or looking more beyond while they are taking a policies or giving a permissions to the corporations.
Yeah.
Even it's like for mining, if we are talking about the energy transition, mining is for like the coal, the nickel industry. For nickel, if we are talking about nickel, yes, nickel for battery of the EV vehicle and then the others. And if we talk about coal, is for our electricity, mostly now in Indonesia is still more than something percent we still using coal power plant. So that's the cause of everything happens in Indonesia now.
It's interesting that you mentioned nickel. You mentioned that nickel is often associated with clean energy because nickel is pretty much the rare or the critical minerals which is useful and important for some renewable energy technologies such as battery. Then this comes to our question. Energy transition is important part of climate action, but at the same time, sometimes the implementations of the energy transition projects are, which is often sold as clean energy or green energy, are not always clean and not always green. We see reports, for example, about the nickel mining in Sulawesi or in Weda Bay in Maluku, and there are reports about the impacts on the environment as well as on the people. How do organizations like Greenpeace, who are working on the ground with the people, see what is actually happening? I mean, do you see or record these energy transition projects and how they actually affect the people or environment around those projects?
This is something really, really, how to say, it's like hard. Even for me, like talking about nickels and seeing what happens at the ground, at the field, impacted to the people. Like our government always said that, we want to have hillarizations. So we
Downstreaming.
downstreaming the industry, and then we will have more valuable things and for our energy transitions, but we never ask the people the way of doing something like this. The way of mining is like we are extracting this type of critical minerals. They put the minings like the extractive way. They put like the productions of it is like really massive,
Yeah.
and then we didn't have clear regulations on that. So if we see before and after from Weda, like now the floods coming in Sumatra, but if you see also a lot of videos in social medias, Weda Bay is also have a lot of floods. And then some of GSOs already have research about the, how to say, it's like toxics in the blood of people of Weda Bay.
Yeah, because
Because
of the
tiling and mining.
tailing of the mining.
And the mining. And we can also see
Because of the pollution on
Yes.
the water.
on the water, and then to the sea, to the fish, and they eat the fish also. The people there eat the fish. This is the first. The second is about the conflict that the people's facing in the ground, in the field.
So it's not only impact on the environment and then from the environment to the people, but also the direct impact to the people on the
Yes.
ground. What happens?
There is a lot of conflict there. The corporations take the land from the peoples, the indigenous people. I think this is a viral video coming from Ongana Manyawa. It's like indigenous people from those
Area? It's from Weda Bay area or?
it's not Weda Bay, but around those area. They like suku anak dalam. They living not in the one places, but they are moving.
Okay.
So because of the mining, they didn't have places to go.
Because now that area is
It's,
closed because
it's a mining area. It's a mining area, and there is a one video they coming to the mining worker saying that this is my place, this is my home. But this type of thing, the government never told to us, to the public,
So-
because of this happens to the people in the like Weda Bay or the others. But the other things is maybe Mas Sofwan also know that several months ago there is a viral way of nickel mining in Raja Ampat. It also happens in Raja Ampat.
Yeah.
Raja Ampat is small island. They have a lot of small island, and then suddenly this type of small island have permissions to have nickel mining there.
So the government issued permits for mining in these small islands in Raja
Yes.
Ampat.
This is one thing, and the other thing is because of these situations makes conflict to each, how to say, family. Because of like in Papua they still have marga. Marga is like sub of family
Clan.
clan in there. So it makes clash each other.
So
Social conflict.
because some are supporting the mining, some are not supporting the mining, or because
Ye-
of other reasons.
This is one thing. The other thing is because of some of them didn't know that their land will be have a mining there, because of the way that the land grabbed from them is not like clearly enough from the people. For the people, so they didn't like saying it's clear, this is for mining, blah 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 and blah blah blah, and you will get this type of impact.
So there is no communication before, no.
Not clear, basically a lot of things like that. So suddenly the lands are grabbed from them. Like in Weda, a lot of CSO already have a research the way of the corporation.
CSO is civil society organization.
Yes. So they have a research how the corporation takes the land from the peoples. So like if I have the land in here, because of some of indigenous people doesn't have how to say, it's like certificate of the land. So but they already there for so long time and so many years, and then they live there, and like only one night suddenly it's already not them, not theirs again.
Yeah, because the government have the
Yeah.
legality, and then
This
they
is one
consider
thing,
it
and then the
illegal.
other thing is in Sulawesi there is how to say, in Makelar they call it like Makelar tanah, suddenly just like throwing, like this is how to say, like hiasan.
land speculators.
Yeah, something like that, and then they just throw, this is my land. Suddenly tomorrow they already got the certificate for like this is my land, not yours.
without clear process.
Without clear
Suddenly they have formal certificate,
Yeah.
and then they can sell it to the company,
Yeah.
something like that. So is it something that is happening only in Indonesia or also happening in different parts of Southeast Asia or the world? I mean, is Greenpeace Indonesia is also have discussion at like the global level on how on the ground energy transition, which is often touted as an imperative for climate action to help us mitigate the impact of climate to avoid surpassing 2 degrees Celsius, is often translated into non-ideal practices on the ground.
Yeah, basically, because of like we are campaign organizations and also we have like cross country offices. Of course, yes. Like if we are talking about nickel mining, we also work with the others. We call it NRO, the other offices that have like EV. So because of we should know the supply chains of the EV. So we need
To
this type,
understand.
yeah. Like the peoples, for example, the peoples from Korea or the peoples from China or the peoples from like global north to know that because of this type of things, we make like we grab the rights of the people in the Papua, in the Sulawesi, or the other areas of Indonesia. So what we should do or what we should watch are we need to make a clear policies, clear like don't do such of mining or critical mining like this to this type of land and blah 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 and blah blah blah. That's we are did across
across
region.
the region. So, so you are campaigning. So you are not against energy transition, right? I mean, you are against the practices of energy transition, which at some cases are often neglecting the social and environmental impacts to local population. And you mentioned that Greenpeace is conducting a campaign globally to the supply chain to ensure to push for more responsible practices of this energy transition projects. So how is it going? How is the campaign going? Because now a lot of money coming for this energy transition. Many investment are coming, and they are often put as national or even international priorities, because then it is considered as something that is important for that. I mean, how how your campaign is received by these stakeholders, and how are you working together with different stakeholders like the local populations?
Like for the example is Raja Ampat campaigns related with the nickel mining. What happens like it's a viral campaign because of what? Because of we know that Raja Ampat is one of like really wish
Popular,
list.
yeah.
Also wish list, not only popular but wish list for everyone around the world, not only Indonesia, for coming to Raja Ampat, seeing the beautiful of Papua, beautiful of biodiversity, cultures, and also like under sea. Like if you wanna dive, come to Raja Ampat. If you wanna see the forest, come to Raja Ampat, including the biodiversity. But what's the threat of this type of beautiful havens, like little havens in the world, is this type of mining in the name of energy transitions. We will put the mining into the small island in Raja Ampat, and also we will like how to say grabbed the people rights related with the environment, put crash the biodiversity, and a lot of things. We campaigning about that in the critical mineral meetings in Indonesia last time. We have action there, and then we want to say to public, keep watch in this type of situations. Because of what? Because of these things happens in Raja Ampat. Because of these situations, the government take like saying we still trying to asking their promises, and then they revoking the permit of some nickel mining corporations.
Did they revoke?
They said yes. We already have the number, but we didn't have the document now yet. Still yet. But one of the corporates still working there.
So the mining is still ongoing.
Still there. But yes, in the ground, in the fields, the peoples are conflict. They have a conflict there. If we see in across social media, there is a lot of discussions because of this type of situations. There is a people who pro, there is a people who contra. It's like, this type of situations always happens. But mostly the people who pro with the mining is transmigrant.
The people who supports the mining are transmigrants, meaning they
It's
are
not
local populations.
Not local populations, and then they are not the people who own the land. Because for Papuans, land is everything. Land is their mom. Not only about this is a land, but it's beyond those type of things. Land is their identity, their life, and their food, their everything is their life.
And this is very interesting because these policies are, how to say, often framed as something that is necessary to save the earth, right? To save the people, because now we see the impacts of climate change is already in front of us, as you mentioned, and to help mitigating the impact and help to ensure that we are not passing through the 2-degree Celsius threshold, we need an energy transition. We need to transition from fossil fuels into clean and green energy. But on the ground, you already mentioned in different cases in Weda Bay, in Papua, even in different parts of Southeast Asia, where there are extractive industries for renewable energies like critical minerals like nickels, there are social and environmental impacts for the local population. So how to balance this? We need energy transition, right? I mean, we really need to transition from fossil fuels. On the other hand, the impacts of some of these energy transition projects to the people are also not clean and not green, and they have negative environmental impacts as well as social impacts to the local population. So how do we do this? How do we ensure an energy transition which is also just for the people?
First is like about we want to keep the 1.5 degrees, like we are not going beyond the 1.5. If this is the goals that we want to achieve, it's not only about the energy transitions things, but also in other sector that Indonesia also facing the other problem. Like if we are talking Sumatra again, it's about deforestation, sector, forest and land use. We also have a lot of emissions coming from forest fires.
So it's important to not look at only one cause of emission, which is energy, but also looking at other as well.
Sector also is important because of one of biggest emissions from Indonesia is not only the fossil fuels, coming from fossils, but one of the biggest are the follow sector. Is forest fires.
Yeah, forest and land use. Sector.
Especially for forest and fires.
Mm.
Because of like Indonesia is like the number 2 biggest country that have peatland. Peatland reserve carbon, but in Indonesia yearly is oftenly burned. If we can't like fixing this problem, so it's mean we will never like achieving our NDC, national determined contributions. This is the first thing.
So it's important to not only investing everything in energy transition, but also putting strong attention to
the other sector,
primarily the forest. The FOLU sector.
This is the forest fires, deforestations, of course, because of we still have reserve planned deforestations, not unplanned deforestation, but planned because of we put like productions forest as a planned deforestation. This type of production forest we can change it into the plantations or mining. So it's mean we still have this type of things.
Okay.
And then if we are
there will be more expansion
yes.
of plantations in the future and more deforestation.
Yeah, either plantations or mining. In the name of production forest, the government can give a permissions or permit to the plantations companies or mining. So we still have this on the table, and the other side is if we are talking about energy transition, for who? Is the big questions. I think all the people will talking about this. For who?
So who benefits from the energy transition?
Yes.
Energy transition is important for everyone, but actually when it is implemented, who benefits and who receive the negative
the transitions?
impacts?
Because of mostly local peoples, in like indigenous peoples, like literally in far from the places, they didn't get the energy. I mean like electricity or blah blah blah, even for the electricity. So, but the impacted most are them.
But Bilkis, you mentioned very important point about we cannot see energy transition partially, and we cannot only look at energy transition as something that is separated from other actions need to be taken for climate action. I mean, you mentioned that the FOLU sector is actually the highest contributor for emission, and thus it will be not rational to, for example, justify some projects under the banner of energy transition, but at the same time actually that project is causing deforestation. So could you elaborate more on this FOLU sector situation in Indonesia and why it's important to not neglecting it?
Yeah, for example, like yearly, we always, mostly in Sumatra and Kalimantan, always facing the haze, forest fires. We always have it in our news. But behind that, our one of the biggest emissions are coming from peatland fires.
Which is abundant in Kalimantan and in Sumatra.
Yes,
right?
Mostly. We have also in Papua. But the thing is, our government never take it seriously. So that's why like the solutions coming from the forest fire is like partial way. Why I'm saying something like this? Because of the solutions that coming for pressing the forest fire issues are like trying to make modified weather modifications and then like make Satgas Karhutla, Satgas like special task force for forest fires, but they never seen the root causes of the forest fires.
So the solutions are partial and only reactive without looking at what is actually causing the forest fires. the
destructions of the peatland. Why? Peatlands is like the normal situations of peatland. They reserve a lot of carbon. While the government giving permissions to the corporations to have something surface on the peatland, they will open the peatland by canal, using canals, to pulling out the waters inside of the peatland. While they are doing that, the peatland, how to say,
emit
the emissions carbon. And then because of those type of things, the activity, the peatland getting really dry and becoming hydrophobic. While the dry season coming, and then
it's very easily burned.
Easily burned. Also, while the El Nino happens, it's becoming like more dry, and then dry season more longer. And then
So we have these forest fires. So
we have the forest fires, we have the haze, and then the haze transported to Malaysia, to Singapore.
Yes, so it's not only something that is affecting the local communities, but also something that has been affecting the region as well in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
This is a very important point. You say that many of these projects are to produce cleaner energy or energy, but those who consume this energy are not the people who are affected by these projects.
Yes, because of, if you see Jakarta consume a lot of energy in electricity way, or another EV things. But the whole mining never come from Jakarta. It's coming from Sulawesi. The coal mining's coming from Kalimantan, and then from Raja Ampat. But the peoples there mostly didn't use that. Some of areas still not got the electricity yet. So who consume more? They didn't have more impacted by the extractive industry first. If we are talking about the climate crisis, yes, all of us have the impact. But the peoples at the ground, at the fields, got more impact rather than the people at the urban.
Who actually consumes more
Yes.
of this energy. So this makes us come to the question of climate justice. I mean, this is a terminology that is often discussed, often campaigned, but people have different interpretations towards it. I think some of the interpretation and popular interpretation of this climate justice mostly talking about how the transition must ensure the continuity, the stability of the livelihood of those people previously working on the fossil fuels area, right? Because they are working in coal mining, and when coal are retired, they lose their jobs, and then energy transition must ensure how these people who are going to lose their jobs because of this transition can have new jobs in like renewable sectors. But you highlighted a very interesting point that energy transition and just transition is not only about how to say economic and employment issue. It is also about the distributive effects of this transition. Even if the technology really produce more sustainable or more less emission than fossil fuel, it can still have negative impacts on the environment directly because of the extractive processes. You also mentioned how we often forget that there is a central and periphery dynamics here. Those who consume more are not being affected by these projects because they are far from these projects. But people who were affected by these projects are often not consuming the energy coming from this. How do you think we can create a more equitable, more just energy transition?
First, like because of you just mentions about the climate justice and like how if we are have the transitions, how about the peoples who work in this in like fossil fuel industry? First is the one who should have a responsibility on that is our government. It's like about Hillarizations, like our elected presidents saying that they will creating 19 million or billion how to say work area for us for the people, but until right now
19
we cannot
million new employment.
yeah
Yes.
we cannot ensuring that. This is the first, and the second questions is like for who, as my previous questions, for who? I mean, yes, I don't want to putting like face to face about people in urban and people in the field, but the one who should taking responsibility again is the government, because of the governments are the one who make the policies. This one, the second one, and then the third one, we have a lack of law enforcement related with everything, not only about the situations. If we are talking about law always like put people's like it sharpen to the people, but never to the powerful people or corporations.
We have this Indonesian saying that law is sharp to the people below, but it's dull towards those on top.
Yeah, because of this type of situations, like if we are talking about nickel mining again and again, like I think a month ago, there is 11 people of Mabasa Ngaji who got criminalized.
So it's indigenous
people, Mabasa Ngaji. It's about 11 people. It's got criminalized by the corporations using our mineral and coal law. Because they say that these 11 people have to menghalangi
they obstruct
the mining and the industry,
which is already granted permission by the government.
Yes.
So
but
they use the legality to then
to facing the people.
Yeah,
to criminalize the people.
To arrest and criminalize
and
these
then the
local
question is,
populations.
What this type of 11 people do? They are claim their activity are trying to put the mining industry like close or blah blah blah. They only do the ceremonial, cultural ceremonial. They do nothing. Only ceremonial. But they got criminalized.
So they are not throwing Molotov or something?
No, even no. They only do the ceremonial things. Because of what? Because they feels that they impacted by the mining industry, the nickel mining industry. From what? Because of this type of forests are their land, their daily habit there, like they finding a food, doing daily activity, and then suddenly there is a mining there. So they want to praying to their ancestor, so they make a ceremonial. And then they got criminalized.
Yeah, because that area was, for the company, it's an exclusive
mining
for
area.
them, for mining.
Only for them.
So this local population who was there before,
it's got kicked out.
Yes.
Just suddenly kick out, and then they do the ceremonial there, and then they got criminalized, and now they are prisoned for 5 until 9 months. only because of the ceremonial things.
And they are not the only ones, right? I mean,
They are not the only one.
how many activists do you know, or
It's a lot.
indigenous people
It's-
are facing this criminalization?
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's only one story there. Now it's also a bit viral. Is there is two activists in Central Java who always accompany people from Jepara, from geothermal and the others
Geothermal,
things.
another energy transition.
Energy transitions, and now they are get prison because of they said that they are trying to asking public to joining a demonstrations.
Against the geothermal.
No,
Side,
not
or?
only geothermal, but while the August protests, massive protest in Indonesia. So we have a lot of criminalization happens across Indonesia related to the people who are defending the environment, defending their rights, or to the activists.
Do you think that this is something that is coming from a global trend? As we know, currently the strongest country on earth, the most powerful country on earth, the United States, is under President Donald Trump. And President Donald Trump, how to say, is pretty much putting climate change or climate action outside the priority, and even in some occasions he believes that climate change campaigns are, how to say, conspiracy against the United States. How do you think? I mean, is this this trend where climate change is already happening in front of our doors, even in our homes? The climate crisis is already there, but governments and the private sectors all over the world are still not doing what they need to do. At the same time, even when they are doing things like energy transition, it is often becoming very complicated on the ground. So, are you optimistic or pessimistic?
To be honest,
Yeah.
literally to be honest, like we always have hope, of course,
Yeah.
but I'm for Indonesia, especially for Indonesia, I'm pessimist on this type of situations.
Interesting. I mean, we have discussed about nickel and geothermal, but then you mentioned about this energy transition in Papua, about the ethanol. Could you tell me more about the case?
So I think these discussions happens maybe since Jokowi era, that we will have a food estate in south of Papua in Merauke, and then suddenly while the new presidents are elected, so we have like priority project in the name of PSN. They will
The
have
National Strategic.
the national
project.
strategic project. They call it food estate, and some of area are focusing on sugarcane for bioethanol.
So, bioethanol for energy.
Yes, for energy. But the thing is, we have historical food estate way in the name of food estate in every presidential era. First is SBY era, we have like MIFE. MIFE is Merauke Integrated Food and Energy Project, and it's failed. And then Jokowi continue the project with the other name, but I forget the name, but also it's failed. Now, Prabowo taken the same project. So, do we didn't learn from our previous history and previous president? This is the first thing. The second thing, I cannot imagine 2 million hectares of forest got deforested by the governments. But we want to like tackling the climate crisis, but
It's
we open,
paradoxical, yeah.
yeah, we opening 2 million hectares.
So we opened 2 million hectares for bioethanol,
Yeah.
partly to do the energy transition, but that means we are, how to say, also destroying the environment by
Yeah.
doing the deforestation,
So
which
how-
also contributes to the emission.
Yeah, so how come? So that's why my questions is who will be profitable or for who this type of energy transitions? Because of what? Because of the peoples at the fields are refusing their land got converted to the either for the sugarcane plantations or the others. So for who? If in the name of energy transitions, you opening the forest, it's mean you passing or got more emissions from this type of activity, and then you want to putting down the emissions by the transitions. Which type of transition? It's question again.
It's shows us the complications on the ground, and thank you very much for sharing to us about how energy transition projects, which is touted as the pathway towards greener and cleaner future, are not always clean and green, and thus it is always important to question and to ask for whom is this projects, even if they are labeled as clean and green. We need to always ask this question. Do you have any other messages to the stakeholders outside who are listening to us on how to how can we make a more, how to say, a better, a more just energy transition? Maybe through what better transparency, better public participation.
Yes,
What do you think?
of course. Like if it's we are talking about the law, we need like a clear, transparent, and public participations. Like our law never have this type of situations and things. The public, us for a specialist, never got like meaningful participation joining the lawmaking process. This is the first. For the public in general, what we can do is support our, like how to say in Indonesia we call it warga bantu warga, saling jaga in solidarity with the people's.
People helping people.
Yeah. And
Citizens
also
helping citizens.
in solidarity with the peoples at the field. Because of why? Because of if we're talking about the mining impact or just energy transitions impact in Weda Bay, in Raja Ampat, in Kalimantan, us that living in urban maybe didn't realize that something, this type of things are in real happens that the people's facing in. So that's why we should always like have in solidarity with those type of peoples and asking what is our privilege and keep eye on our government in every policies that they make. Why? Because of oftenly the policies coming out that in way that we never know and we never expect that this type of policies are there or happened. Suddenly they change it only in night. Suddenly we just only got it after they how to say sahkan.
After they legalize.
After they
enact the
legalize and
bill,
blah blah
yeah.
blah, the bill and etc. So yeah, so for me and for public, I think you should always criticize and to be critis in what happens across in Indonesia and across regions because of if we are talking about the impact of climate crisis, all of us of course impacted, but across ASEANs like Philippines, they always facing the typhoon, and it's worsened because of the climate crisis.
Change, yes.
So that's why we should always have empathy, sympathy to the people across, like the most close of you, maybe only just asking, are you okay, or blah blah blah. It's like the small thing that we can do.
Thank you very much, Bilgis. People solidarity is important. So today we have learned that energy transition is something that is not as easy as it is on paper. I mean, we see that, of course, energy transition is often promoted as the pathway forward to ensure a cleaner and greener future. But on the ground, it is always important to ask whether these projects claim to be part of this energy transition really being implemented in a green and clean manner. And to ensure that, Mbak Bilgis reminds us to push for more transparency, to always critically assess the claims by the government, whether these projects are really for energy transition, really for climate, or actually just another projects for accumulating profits for some segments of the society, while the communities are being affected by the negative consequences of it. And there is also a call for solidarity to continue strengthen the solidarity between the people, those who are directly affected by these projects with social and environmental impacts, but also solidarity between all of us who are from different areas. Thank you very much, Bilgis. It has been very insightful, and looking forward for working together for a greener and cleaner future. Salam ASEAN. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima kasih banyak.
Makasih banyak.